I would like to call to order the Winooski Liquor Control Board meeting. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Deputy Mayor Thomas Vernon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jenny, please join us. We have one regular item, sidewalk use application for Morning Light Bakery.
Yes, good evening. So this is a renewal application. He had one last year. It's been approved. I reviewed it with Eric. I submitted the dimensions. It's pretty self-explanatory.
I don't recall any complaints about their setup last year.
I do.
Morning Light?
I don't think they set it up last year. But
Oh, they never got to it?
yeah.
Okay.
He did have some tables
Oh,
last
okay.
year, yeah. A bit later.
Yes.
What is your recollection, Bryn?
I think there is a light post or
There is.
yeah. And again, I think when we reviewed it last year, there was just similar concerns with ADA accessibility.
If I remember, I think that was when it was, they had first had it on like this side,
Yes.
and there was a light
On-
post, so I wonder if having it on the other side resolves that.
If the dimensions on here are correct, it looks like it should not be a problem.
Okay.
That's what he said when I sent it back to him.
Okay.
Perfect.
Any other questions or concerns?
No.
Any questions from members of the public? You can use the raise hand or chat feature in Zoom. Okay. Hearing no additional concerns, would someone like to make a motion to approve this sidewalk use application?
So moved.
Motion by Charlie, second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That is the end of the Liquor Control Board meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Thomas, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. It is 6:03 p.m. I will call to order the Winooski City Council meeting. Any questions, concerns about the order of this evening's agenda?
No.
All right. It is, next up is public comment. Public comment is meant for members of the public to make comment on any items not included on tonight's agenda. If you are here for an item on the agenda, I would ask you to hold for that item. Is there any public comment this evening? I see a hand.
Mayor Law, we have Terry Ziegman with us tonight. Go ahead, Terry, when you're ready.
Terry, can you hear us? If you're speaking, Terry, we can't hear you.
Terry, you are in the participants list here, Terry, and we see your hand is raised, but we can't hear anything you're saying. You may try hitting the mute button and then unmuting. Sometimes that helps. Doesn't seem like that worked. Terry, you can also try to call in if that's easier from your phone number.
Did anyone else have public comment tonight? Okay. Paul, would you be able to share with Terry the dial-in via chat?
I will, yes.
Okay. I'm going to move to the consent agenda, but we will come back when she's able to reconnect. Are there any questions on the consent agenda this evening?
No.
Okay. Any questions from members of the public? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brent, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh. It looks like Terry has been able to rejoin. Can you, oh, maybe not. Oh, perhaps.
Let's give it a shot. Terry, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Hi, Terry, yes.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, my
No
computer
worries.
mic doesn't seem to work. Hi, thank you for taking the time to listen to my public comment. Or actually, it's a question. And I just need to pull up the email. I had it all set here, but couldn't do it from my phone. I'm calling with a public comment. I wanted to ask again about the sidewalks, the bike lanes and the parking spaces being striped. I'm just curious when that is going to happen.
Elaine, do you know, or,
I don't have a time frame handy, Terry, but we can follow up after the meeting.
Okay, this is something that I've come to council with for the past 3 years.
Yes,
And it
there's
was my-
always been an operational challenge getting the contractor to get here, so it isn't a matter of lack of priority. So I would just need to find an update on when we're expecting them here.
Okay, that would be great. And I also wanted to ask the council about transportation impact fees. I had sent an email on May 16th, which I believe was the day before you had your strategic planning meeting. I sent an email to City Manager Elaine and also to Bryn, asking that that be prioritized this year. And I got an email back from Elaine. I guess I sent the email on maybe the 14th or the 13th, sorry. But I got an email back from Elaine saying that council agreed that not to keep this as a priority. And I'm just curious why this isn't a priority. It does say here in the email is that they are one-time and unpredictable, and they limit the benefits they have. And I guess the bottom line I'm reading from this email is that the pushback you're getting from developers would just be too much. It would be prohibitive to have these fees. As a taxpayer, I voted yes for a fire truck with a larger ladder to reach the tall buildings that we're developing, that we're having built in the city. I've been asking for bike lanes for 3 years. I understand that it's, hard to get a contractor in to do that. The parking spaces have not been striped in over 3 years. I don't understand why having impact fees is not a priority. I also was able to find a transportation impact fee study that was done and submitted. The final report, I believe, was submitted on December 2nd, 2020, to the city council, to the mayor, to the then city manager, Jesse Baker. Have members of the council seen this report? Have members of the council, are they aware of it? And could anybody speak to why, when you contracted with CCRPC to get this study done, why it's still not a priority?
hi Terry, council did receive that report. It was reviewed. Some commissions reviewed it as well back at that time. After financial review and considerations, what Elaine shared via email is accurate. We didn't find that it was as financially productive as other strategies. Like the return on investment would not be significant enough for managing the program and keeping exceptions in place for priority housing projects. It's never reached a stage where it's been under deep consideration, and so there has been no developer pushback because we haven't actually engaged developers on that. We had that discussion in our priority session and chose not to prioritize transportation impact fees. We are instead asking staff to investigate public safety impact fees specifically related to the need to replace the fire truck for a larger ladder. So there is some discussion still occurring on impact fees, but not for the transportation program.
Okay, well, I'm here tonight, not in person, obviously, but I'm here again to ask that the council, not just you, Mayor Lott, but the council, who I believe represent me, and you also represent me, and other members of the public, I'm asking that we look at this again, because every community around us, all of our neighbors have impact fees. We do not. And the taxpayers are the ones that are paying for new crosswalks, for the blinking beacons. We're paying for all of this stuff. We're paying for a new fire truck with a bigger ladder. It's not fair. It's not fair. And I understand the staffing issues. I get it. However, I don't get why we continue to develop without having impact fees. When I was on Planning Commission 6 or 7 years ago, way before you were even mayor, when Paul Dreyer was running Planning Commission, we had talked about impact fees. Perhaps that's where this study came from. I don't know the exact timeline, but really, I'm astounded that the council doesn't see this as a priority and can't seem to find the motivation to do what every other community in Chittenden County is doing. I thank you all for listening, and I appreciate the time to speak at the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. I just want to be clear, we are considering impact fees in the priorities. That did make it to the priorities list, public safety impact fees. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Paul, I don't think we had anyone else signed up.
No one else signed up for this evening, no.
Okay. Let's move on to council reports. Charlie, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Councilor Hurd and I met with the seniors who are residents at the Courtyard residential facility, and they shared with us some of their reflections about their day-to-day, specifically related to infrastructure. The folks in the Courtyard are really excited about the Winooski Farmers Market. They're glad that it's back this year. They'd like to see it be bigger and have more vendors. And on more of like the negative side, many of the participants in the group have concerns about the state of the sidewalks, specifically around the railroad tracks. We were able to talk to them about how it's a relationship between us and the company that operates the railroad and owns the tracks themselves. And that was something that came up consistently throughout the meeting, even though it had already been talked on, so there's a lot of feelings around that. And yeah, just a lot of traffic stuff. They'd like to see more traffic calming, more sidewalks, and better condition of the sidewalks that already exist around the Courtyard itself, because that's where they're traveling the most.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it was pretty productive.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
2 items from downtown Winooski. As Charlie kind of mentioned, the farmers market did start last Sunday, so that will be going on every Sunday until October 23rd. And it starts at 10 a.m. and ends at about 2 p.m. And then also our first Winooski Wednesday will be this Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So definitely make sure to check that out. The doors open at 4:30, so you can get yourself set up for a good place to sit. And then the mayor and I also met with seniors at Our Lady of Providence. And I met with some seniors at the residents at 65 Barlow. And a lot of similar conversations about sidewalk use, concerns with the safety and the difficulty for seniors to utilize our sidewalks. They spoke about a lot of other things, and I think something that council has just, we've talked about for a while, making sure that all of our activities and events are accessible to seniors, and we let them know about Winooski Wednesdays and the farmers market. But it was really nice discussions. We had a really good time with them, and I had a great time at the other meeting.
All right, thank you. Just want to give a public thanks to the VFW, RVA, and all of our city staff for assisting in the return of the Memorial Day Parade and community barbecue. And thank you for volunteers who attended and helped out with that. As well, want to mention the Winooski Gardening Group and the work those volunteers have been doing to update flower beds around town over the last 2 weeks. They're always seeking volunteers. They have a Facebook page. Want to share that I had a check-in with our school board president since our last meeting. And they are in the process of planning for their annual retreat. So we'll reconnect after they set their priorities. I did share our information with her. And also that we plan to resume regular check-ins once the superintendent officially starts on July 1st. And can also talk about other coordination after that. I also had a meeting with the Vermont Air National Guard Wing Commander to just check in about operation and community engagement updates. I'm told there are no significant operational changes planned this year, with the exception that this month, I want to say they said half of the jets are going overseas again, so it may be quieter for the month of June. We are going to reconnect as the noise map update from the airport starts to come together to talk about broad community engagement. The Planning Commission will be meeting this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Those meetings are hybrid, so you can join from Zoom, telephone, or here in council chambers. They are continuing to discuss a design review district as an additional layer of permitting review to address historic preservation concerns. Those discussions are pretty fluid. Exactly what the requirements would be or what the area of coverage is, they haven't reached that point yet. And then finally, I just want to share publicly that myself and members of staff have been engaging in discussions led by the Chittenden County Homeless Alliance and Agency of Human Services about the evolving response to the end of the state motel housing program. I don't have anything particularly tangible to share tonight, but just want the public to know that we are paying attention to that and a part of the conversation as things change. That is it for me.
Thanks. The Municipal Infrastructure Commission met in May, and we reviewed the some of the initial concerns presented to the CCRPC during a public meeting earlier in May to review the LaFountain Dion Street scoping study. It's in the very early stages. The Infrastructure Commission will serve as the advisory committee for that. The committee, the commissioners were very interested in ensuring there was additional clear ways that members of the community can provide additional comment, and that it wasn't just the commission that was being relied on for comment and perspective. So the CCRPC did say that they would provide some reassurance that there would be additional opportunities for the public, greater public, and not just the advisory committee to provide scoping for that, because there's quite a bit of interest. I am anticipating that the Infrastructure Commission will meet again on June 15th. We will have some structural changes, as the chair has announced that he will need to step down. So likely to have a notice recruiting an additional commissioner and seeking somebody to step up into that role. So if you're interested, we meet at the pool. I met with folks at the senior center during the coffee chat towards the end of May. Similar concerns that have already been mentioned. There was additional topics came up about potholes being filled, and a lot of questions about the DDI project, actually, and just wanting to know how that's progressing, as well as the Winooski Bridge, of course. Lots of interest on those capital projects, and some other elements with the downtown circle area, but a lot of what has already been shared, so I won't repeat that too much. And it's also upcoming this Wednesday, the 7th, is another airport commission meeting. We meet the first Wednesday of the month, 4 p.m. It's online as well as in person at the airport. There will be agenda items to cover noise complaints. That's a standard item on the agenda, as well as progress on residential sound insulation phasing. So just hearing updates on that. There's nothing on this upcoming agenda about noise impact mapping and reassessment for that for this month, but I'll let you know as that progresses. That's all I have.
The Inclusion and Belonging Commission is meeting this week. It's going to be Thursday at 6 p.m. It's a virtual meeting, so it's over Zoom. Folks want to attend, please feel free. We also have 2 vacancies for regular members and 2 vacancies for alternates. So if you're interested in engaging with the city in this kind of work, please check those out. They're on the website. And also feel free to reach out to me as well.
Thank you. All right, city updates.
Yes, so Myers Memorial Pool season is started. We had an incredible opening weekend at the Myers Memorial Pool. Our first 50 pass holders enjoyed a special pizza party on Saturday, and our big opening day on Sunday was a huge success. Big thanks to our Public Works team, pool supervisor, and lifeguard team who helped get everything ready and operational. Pass sales remain strong and we're well staffed, so we look forward to greeting returning community members and new visitors. Community members should know we're offering a shorter schedule for now to accommodate lifeguard availability, but will be open for full hours on Saturday, June 17th. For hours, programs, pool passes, scholarship information, and notices, please visit winooskivt.gov/pool. The Vermont Agency of Transportation will be performing geotechnical investigation work on the Winooski River Bridge beginning Wednesday, June 7th and ending on Sunday, June 11th. Traffic impacts and lane closures are expected. Motorists and pedestrians are asked to use caution when traveling through the area. For details, please visit the news update section of our website at winooskivt.gov. And speaking of vacancies, we're currently looking for an engaged and dedicated resident to serve on the Winooski Valley Parks District Board of Trustees. The WVPD's mission is to support the preservation of natural areas, establish parks, and provide resource-based education and recreation for the Winooski River Valley. We're also looking to onboard an alternate member of the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board of Commissioners, Winooski representative. CSWD's mission is to reduce and manage the solid waste generated within Chittenden County in an environmentally sound, efficient, effective, and economical manner. In addition, there are current seat vacancies for our local Winooski commissions, as you heard, Inclusion and Belonging, as well as Finance. Applicants with related experience, skill sets, and interests are encouraged to apply. Council and staff welcome diverse voices. If you've never served, we will do our best to support you. To learn more and apply, please visit the news update section on our website at winooskivt.gov.
Thank you. We will move on to regular items. We have introduction of our new youth interventionist.
Yeah, so very excited to be here tonight with our new youth interventionist. As folks know, Francine Bahati she's lingering with us to help transition our new member in, but is headed off to grad school in the fall. So Ndayisenga Vandame, who goes by Vandame, is joining our team as the youth interventionist moving forward. We're about 2 to 3 weeks into it. Already doing great work. We've transitioned a number of active cases over and starting to look at ways before the school year ends to get some connections with the school and kiddos leading into the summer. But really excited about having Vandame join the team. I want to give him the floor to say a few things about himself, but just really glowing reviews thus far.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
Thank you, Ray, for the introduction. My name is Ndayisenga Vandame. I go by Vandame, as in our culture, we go by our last names. I'm originally from Burundi, but I was born in Tanzania. So like Francine, she's from my country too. So our parents are really close. I went to Burlington High School right after I went to Castleton, and I worked as a behavior interventionist at Baird School at Howard Center. Prior to this, I also worked I had many jobs, but I but I volunteered for Diversity Rocks. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Diversity Rocks, which was a group down in Burlington, started 2011 all the way to 2018. And yesterday we actually had a get-together party because a lot of the people were gone. But the whole point of that group was to basically share cultures. There was a bunch of people from Africa, from Nepal and Bhutan and India, just Americans, and it was just a group where we shared cultures, where we traveled to different states and we performed or shared music and food and things in that nature. And if students who are the first ones to go into college, we tend to visit a lot of colleges to just get that exposure of hey, you could go here, or if not, you might know somebody who might want to go here. But that was really interesting for me to get involved in that group, especially being the first one to go to college in my family. That was really cool. I also worked as a another youth mentor for Building Blocks to Success, which was also in Burlington, but it ended. But the whole point was also to help students, just basically help students to who are having a hard time in school, or just to mentor them with their homeworks and things like that. And it all started with a friend of mine, Aden Haji, who worked down in Burlington for Pathways, I believe that's what it's called, the company's called. But he started that because he saw his siblings struggling in school, and he brought friends of us together to basically help change that, because we know that going to college for us was really huge success for our parents and also for ourselves, because a lot of our parents really never thought about or just didn't have that education or just that experience of higher education. And I also worked as a gardener, used to, for Burlington High School before all of this, before I started working with kids and youth and mentorship and things of that nature. So I've always had an eye for like leadership groups and mentorship and youth, and just to give back basically, because I had a lot of mentors who were really involved in the community. So that kind of rubbed up on me to do the same. So, and now I'm here.
We're psyched about it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vandame.
Yeah,
Thanks
of
for
course.
sharing that.
Yeah.
You sound very on track to be in this role.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Are there any questions from council?
No, we're just really happy to have you and look forward to hearing how your experience is.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You
Or
guys
stick
go.
around as long as you want. Feel free to leave.
Well,
Okay. We will move on to, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard a question. We will move on to item B. We have a public hearing warned tonight for consideration of Chapter 28 fees ordinance update. Let me have, Angela, do you want to give a brief overview before I open the hearing?
Sure. This has been before council a couple of times now. This is an update to our fees chapter of our ordinance. Any fees charged to the public for services provided by the city either need to be in ordinance, or ordinance needs to specify that the fee is set by resolution. We are adjusting the rental registry fee from the previous $100 a year to, I believe it's now $115. Adding in some passport fees and cleaning up some language that's been confusing in terms of some fees. and adding in a recreational vehicle permit that is within the ordinance chapter but did not have a fee specified.
Thank you, Angela. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing for comment. We do not have any members of the public in the room. If anyone via Zoom wishes to ask a question or make a comment, please use the chat or raise hand feature. Okay. Hearing no comment, I would like to close the hearing, this public hearing, and move us into, are there any questions or comments from council?
I have a couple comments, it looks like.
Oh, you go first.
Just want to reiterate that these fees are minor in nature, and many of them haven't changed in quite a while. For example, the rental registry, Angela, I think that's been at almost 10 years, if not more.
The fee has been the same for a number of years, but we did switch within that 10-year period from having it only billed in the year that you're inspected to being billed every year.
So the fee itself, that increase is not changed. The amount, the dollar amount has not changed. The frequency has. So just want to kind of note that these are minor and very incremental.
Elaine?
So on the off chance that the city is told that we can actually change this within this public ordinance change cycle, I just want to alert the public that it's possible that we'll also be increasing the marriage license fee from the current $60 to $80. If we can't actually legally do that, we'll take it up at a future time. But in case we are, just wanted to let folks know about that, if there was public comment about that during this round.
Right, so you're responding to the note in here that the state law increased the fee, but
Correct.
because we have it written in such a way that it doesn't refer to state law.
Correct. We can only charge what's written in our ordinance currently. And unfortunately, with the way the state law has changed, we would be paying money to the state instead of being able to pay for our service of that if we don't change it.
Would it be viable for council to give direction to update that language and hold a second public hearing before we vote on these changes in order to allow that?
I wouldn't want to hold up this set because the public building registry fees, we're holding off billing those
I see.
already.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I would have held back everything if it didn't matter too much.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I just wonder how many marriage licenses do we issue generally a year? Because $20 could add up a lot if it is a decent amount.
Right, Angela crunched some numbers for us, pulling up that.
On average, it's 55 to 60 licenses a year, but they are concentrated in the summer and fall. We don't issue too many over the winter. So this is the time where people are starting to come in.
$1,000.
So there is, if you're able to change it, the cycle that we'd have a separate public hearing.
Yes,
Is that
it
correct?
will,
Okay.
it will probably be a little confusing to people. Why are you reopening the fees ordinance, unfortunately? But yeah, to capture some of what otherwise would be a cost to the city, we should open it up pretty soon.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Open it back up, I should say.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Having closed the public hearing, let's move to item C. This is on for discussion and approval, adopting this ordinance update. Given that we just had the discussion, does someone want to make a motion to, I'm sorry, do I require a specific motion? Just a motion to approve adoption of the Chapter 28 fees ordinance update.
So moved.
I'm sorry, Aurora, did you move it? And then, okay, Bryn. Motion by Bryn, second by Thomas?
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Fees adopted.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item D. We will welcome Eric up to the table.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to introduce to you a slate of amendments to the city's Unified Land Use and Development Regulations. The Planning Commission has been working diligently over the past many months to prepare these amendments. They held a public hearing on April 27th to take public comments, and then additionally followed up on May 11th with a additional discussion on the specific language in the parking section, section 412, for additional comments. Following that meeting, they voted unanimously to forward the amendments on to City Council for your consideration. So tonight, this item is on the agenda more as a higher level overview, just to introduce this information to you, and then we will have a more detailed discussion at a future meeting with the potential for setting a public hearing to take public comments specifically. So to highlight some of the changes that have been proposed, there's a lot of red line in here, but some of it, the bulk of the changes are in section 412, which is related to our parking standards. Many of these amendments are focused on Article 4, including sections 4.1 through 4.12. We are not doing anything, we're not proposing any changes to section 4.4 or section 4.8 right now. The Planning Commission is working on, as the mayor mentioned, under the council reports, is working on the language in section 4.4 related to design review, and section 4.8 is related to natural resources and open space, and we didn't propose any changes in that section. So those are not included in these amendments. There's also a new section, section 5.15, which includes incentives for adaptive reuse. This is in reaction to, this is the Planning Commission's way to start proposing some historic preservation standards while we work through the design review component to build in more specific historic preservation and other design considerations. And also section 6.6, in site plan review, a lot of the language from section 4.1 and 4.12 has been moved into section 6.6. That's why it's included as well. The parking section had a lot of standards on parking lots and the design of the parking lots, which are more appropriate, I think, in the site plan review section, because it doesn't apply necessarily in all cases. It really is more site plan specific. So we've moved that information into section 6.6, and then we're also including additional definitions and just cleaning up some of the definitions as well. So a lot of the work for these amendments is mostly cleanup and clarification to provide some additional specificity to the sections. The most changes and the biggest changes, I think, are in, again, as I mentioned, in section 412 related to parking. We've added additional categories of land use to include for the parking standards. We've reduced the minimum number of parking spaces in some cases. We've added, a big section was the addition of requirements for bicycle parking. We provided more detail on how to achieve parking reductions through shared use parking, public parking, transportation demand management strategies, and off-site options. We've included incentives to further reduce parking through the installation of electric vehicle charging stations that are publicly accessible, as well as underground parking, and just some other general cleanup for that section. I think that's a general high-level overview. Happy to take any questions or provide any additional detail if you all would like. But as I mentioned, the intent is to get into a more detailed discussion on the specifics at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Mind if I start? This is just kind of a reminder. We've talked about like parking minimums around the number of bedrooms previously. Is that correct? Like that was. Am I remembering correctly? Like last year we reviewed some land use requirements around that. Yeah,
that's right. And we included incentives to allow for parking reductions for units that were affordable and or had 3 or more bedrooms in them. Gotcha. So that is something that's already included in our regulations in section 5.14.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to double check.
Yep.
Do you have any other questions?
Let me come back.
Okay. I received a public comment asking about the status of S100, the omnibus housing bill.
Yep.
And how that will influence the proposed changes in here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Counselor. I did want to mention S100. So I think it depends. I think what we need to do is an analysis of what our minimum requirements look like versus the potential incentives to reduce the parking to see if that will be considered to be aligned with S100 or not with the provisions within there. I believe the minimum parking that's allowed under S100 is 1 space per dwelling unit. So right now we have 1 space per dwelling unit. However, for our multi-unit development, we do, however, require 2 spaces per dwelling unit for developments in our residential districts, our residential A, B, and C. But we do also have some incentives to reduce some parking. So the incentives, I don't know how that's going to be looked at. In any event, we are, as I mentioned, the Planning Commission is working right now on the design review standards in section 4.4, and if we need to, we can incorporate additional changes in reaction to S100 when we find out more details on that.
Okay. So it sounds like we're waiting on interpretation. I can't tell from the legislative website if that has been signed into law.
It has not.
Okay.
Yes? Oh, today?
Today. Hot off the press.
I heard it this morning that it hadn't been, so it's good to know.
All right. Thank you for the update. Okay, so it sounds like we'll just get some additional interpretation.
That's right, yep.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
No, I'll wait until our more in-depth session.
And I would say if you have any questions as you're reviewing this outside of this meeting, please feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to collect that information and let you know.
I think one thing I definitely want to suggest, kind of as we're reviewing, is bring in the equity assessment worksheet for this.
Sure.
Eric, one thing that came up maybe February, a couple months ago, was as part of the incentives for parking reductions about shared lots.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some outstanding questions. I don't recall hearing how the calculations would work out for like mixed-use structures where there's residences above, commercial below, and how shared use versus that the multi-family parking requirements calculations would play into each other.
Yes, so we did actually, the language that was originally reviewed by the Planning Commission was fairly heavily revised. Okay. And so that is now included in section 412D1. It's some additional clarification on how the sharing of uses on the same site would be addressed.
Okay.
There's a lot to review here, especially if you haven't been looking at it over the course of several months. And then one thing that I just wanted to suggest we keep in mind, in addition, Aurora, I'm glad you raised the equity impact worksheet, because we need to think about these land use regulations are super complex, and it takes a lot of effort to consider how will these changes potentially impact density or housing priorities, and also with incentives, are they viable? You know, we spent quite a while revising our priority housing incentives because what was initially put in a bonus story wasn't actually an incentive or appealing to offset like housing affordability. So just some thoughts to keep in mind during review. And I'm glad that we are going to have these for a while, because that will give us more time to dig in and think about like what sections do you want more clarity on. I can imagine we'll need Eric to explain quite a bit
Sure, and I'll be happy to do that. And yeah, like I mentioned, section 412, the parking section, is probably where the most changes are being proposed. A lot of the other information is cleanup and clarification. So there is some additional language in those sections, but the bulk of the changes are coming from the parking and loading standards.
I had a question about the minimum parking for ADUs. Is the assumption that the ADU would really only have one dwelling unit?
So by definition, an ADU can only have one dwelling
Okay.
unit.
All right.
And there's a statutory definition for what an ADU is, and actually I believe statute outlines that you can only require one parking space.
Okay. Did the commission discuss eliminating parking for ADUs?
I don't know if we specifically discussed ADU parking elimination. We did have some discussions on whether or not we should, we had several public comments on related to elimination of minimum parking standards altogether, based on what's happened in South Burlington and Burlington most recently. The Planning Commission was not comfortable eliminating parking altogether, mostly because their concern, and I don't want to speak for them specifically, but the comments that were raised is that right now we don't have enough alternatives as far as other options to single occupancy vehicle or vehicle driving. We have bicycle infrastructure, we have sidewalks, we have buses, but there's not enough frequency or enough connectivity to really allow people to give up a vehicle. So they weren't there yet, but I think as some of those other programs come along and get improved, we may get closer to either further reducing or potentially eliminating parking for some uses.
And since there's been, I think, more interest and conversation about density and encouraging ADUs, is there any adjustments, and forgive me because I'm sure this is all here, are there any adjustments to allow for reduced setbacks for ADUs?
So right now, an accessory dwelling unit we consider to be an accessory structure, so the minimum setback is 5 feet right now for the side and rear. As opposed to most of the other zoning districts require at least 15 feet for rear yard and I believe 10 feet for side yard.
Great, thank you.
We do have one attendee on Zoom, so I want to open up to public comment. Jean, if you have anything, please use raise hand or chat. Okay. Any other questions? For now? Okay.
Great. Thank you all
you,
very
Eric.
much.
Okay, let's move on to item E, our strategic vision area goal updates.
Yeah, so you've got 2 updates in your packet, one for all, meaning that these are items that touch on several, if not all, the goal areas of economic vitality, housing, municipal infrastructure, and safe, healthy, connected people. Under all, I'll just ask if council has any concerns about a sole source contract to the family room for the Working Community Challenges contractor host. It's a lot of nouns in a row right there.
Is that a question you want now or?
Yes, yeah, I'll just give a little context for anyone who's tuning in for the first time on this topic. So the Working Communities Challenge is it's an initiative of the Boston Federal Reserve Bank, and the goal is to foster cross-sectoral collaboration to resolve or to address challenges that can't be solved by any one sector. So in our case, it is workforce development access for especially new Americans. So this project has been challenging to keep going since our equity director resigned, part because she had, and it was challenging even when she was here because it was basically 3 jobs that she was doing: Working Communities Challenge Initiative Director, actual equity director work, which is policy focused, and community outreach liaison. So with this current iteration, we're attempting to carve out the Working Communities Challenge Initiative Director role temporarily just to be served by a short-term contractor that would that would foster a new core team, which would really be that cross-sectoral group of folks that would be informing what this money should be spent on strategically. Even though the city is the lead on the grant, it doesn't mean we should dictate what happens, because there's a lot of other stakeholders here, and their voices are just not enough heard. So the strategy now is to hire a short-term contractor to cultivate that new core team. So after a lot of back and forth trying to recruit such core team members ourselves, we found that we didn't have enough time to get that to happen. So we're thinking of paying someone to do that. And the family room is the only original core team member, which still is part of the core team, and has very strong relationships within our New American communities. So that was the logic behind justifying a sole source contract. But yeah, before we actually bring it to council, wanted to take this opportunity to ask for if there are any concerns with that.
Thank you, Elaine. Any concerns?
I'm interested in knowing like how the deliverables will be, that we're obligated to, will be fulfilled, if that's a complete relaying of those responsibilities to the family room. And if the funds that are available will be sufficient to compensate them for those deliverables.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I guess it remains to be seen. When we floated roughly what we were thinking about paying an initiative director based on what the other initiative directors in Vermont get, it seemed like we should have enough room in the budget to produce some results. There aren't, so Yasmin Gordon, the equity director, Winooski's equity director, actually delivered on all of the deliverables that have been committed to already.
Okay.
Going forward, it's like we figure out what the work plan is and then deliver on them. So, there's plenty of room to scope it appropriately. And we are including consideration of some overhead costs for the host. If it was the family room, that's certainly best practice. So it would become a pass-through.
And that would come from the general fund?
It would come from the Working Communities Challenge grant.
Okay, so there would
It
be.
would all come out of that.
Okay, that essentially was what I was trying to frame. Is there sufficient funds in the Working Communities Challenge grant to cover the anticipated cost, or would there be additional allocation requests from the general fund?
I see. Our plan is certainly to scope it so that it fits within the Working Communities Challenge.
Great.
I'm not hearing concerns, Elaine.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And then economic vitality in terms of that update. Oh, any comments generally about the all goal update? Okay. For economic vitality, I know you all are rightly concerned about the language access plan, so I'll comment a bit on that. So we are making progress on the request for proposals for a contractor to lead the initial 2 phases of that project. Paul Sarin, the communications director, has been taking the lead on scoping that, and we're thinking of it in terms of a assessment and a policy phase for a contractor, and then we would be doing the plan itself internally, and probably procedures as well. Paul, is there anything, I'm putting you on the spot here, but is there anything you'd like to say about that? I know I just sent back the comments to you today.
No, I think you definitely covered most of those points pretty well. Yeah, I'm liking the idea of doing it in a phased approach. Phase 1, all the community engagement, putting a language needs assessment together, and then phase 2, sort of looking at internal operational stuff, policies, procedures, and then after having all of those deliverables for us to put together the plan. I think that's great.
So, looking forward to being able to report more tangible progress on that shortly.
Do you have a sense for timing of those phases?
Yeah, so Paul and I haven't discussed my input on that yet. He's drafted it as, say, August to get the RFP out, and then September to get the RFP back, or the bids back. October through perhaps March to do the work. We'll have to see, and this is our first time through, so we'll see if that feels like not enough or too much or what.
Is it anticipated, or is there need, let me rephrase, what's the plan to coordinate with the school?
So there's a couple of pieces that Paul built in. So certainly that the school is a source of a lot of our information about our multilingual needs in the community, or language access needs in the community. So there's that piece. So we've built in, like, there needs to be stakeholder engagement at least of these groups, and that's the school district is certainly one of them. ALV, of course, USCRI, others.
Okay, thank you.
And the two commissions that are most connected: Safe, Healthy, Connected, Inclusion, and Belonging.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the economic vitality one?
Appreciate the update.
Any questions from members of the public?
No,
Okay, we'll move on from item E. Thank you, Elaine. All right, on to item F, finalizing our annual city council policy priorities and strategies. So we have a bit of a three-parter here.
Kristen, can I actually ask for just a little break?
Oh, sure,
before we
okay.
move on?
Before we start into item F, let's take a 5-minute recess. We will reconvene at 7:03. Okay. It is 7:03, so I'll reconvene our meeting from break. So what we have here tonight is the list of priorities that we aligned on at our May 13th Priorities and Strategies Retreat with Leadership Team. Tonight the ask is to adopt this final list, but there is space if anyone wants to have further discussion for any reason. Additionally, we had a conversation at that meeting about both commission and community engagement. I took those notes and created the 2 attached documents here. And I also had a discussion with Elaine about getting she shared some additional staff input on engagement areas.
Mm-hmm.
So pending adoption of the final priorities, then we can talk about bringing this to commissions and then community engagement stuff. So with that, let's first look at our priorities and strategies document. And I will open the floor if there are any comments before we move to adopt this.
There definitely was interest from the commission and from the public on seeing what the next work plan is, and the priorities for the coming year are, so looking forward to sharing this out with those groups.
Are we feeling good about advancing what we came to on last month?
Yeah.
Including
we had a good discussion.
Including the prioritizations.
Well, that's the one question I had. Are we, like, when we advance this document, are we going to knock off the items that we didn't prioritize?
I believe yes.
Okay. Just so that's cleaner. Do you need me to rephrase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you?
So, for example, like, if it didn't garner enough stars, will we remove it?
No, that's not what. Sorry.
You agreed before.
I thought you meant like the stuff from like the Sears document. Misinterpretation.
Okay.
So as a refresher, the stars are indications of where we put our highest priority. So ideally, everything in here gets moved forward, worked on over the course of the year, but if push comes to shove, those stars tell staff like
What
the
to
one
do.
thing we care the most about. And also, to be clear, must do and recommend are still categories on here. So we aren't necessarily telling staff that everything in recommended must happen either. So there's tiers.
Yeah, and there's some things that will, even though they're recommended, they will receive staff support when they're ready. So, for example, the airport noise mitigation, that will get staff to support, even though it's listed as recommended, it's just as that time approaches and as it's appropriate for us to engage with that. So also want to make sure that there's just clarity around that.
Yeah, I guess one question / clarification possibly just for the public too is in municipal infrastructure, I think there's 5 votes on the city infrastructure financial needs, but that's under recommended because it depends if we have the resources, correct?
Well, it's under recommended because it isn't a must-do. It sounds funny,
Yeah.
but
It is, yeah.
that's what it is. It's very awkward that it isn't a must-do, but there are resources, so planning as really as we can.
Any other questions or comments on this? Any questions from members of the public? So I'll do this separately. I would like to get a motion specifically to approve the strategies and priorities.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Thomas, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the commission engagement notes. So again, sort of a two-part discussion. What we discussed is here in this grid. So all of the items from those priorities that we said wanted commission engagement, I've represented that here. You'll see in italic text recommendations from my conversation with Elaine. And so a lot of these are invite for consultation, which is sort of, we're not exactly sure what that should look like yet, but we should keep it on our radar. My goal here would be that first, if anyone wants to call out an additional area, like, did we miss somewhere where we should be engaging a commission on one of these items? And then second, the goal would be that each of us take this document, meet with our commission chair and staff liaison, and have a discussion about that commission's work plan. The timing on some of this isn't entirely clear yet, and so that may have an impact on meeting schedules. But I also think it would be good for the chair, and then like we can show this as well with commissions when those work plans are put together, like this is all the stuff that's on priority and here's where we see you fitting in. They might have ideas about other areas of engagement, which could be brought back for consideration.
I feel like the bike ped master plan should also be offered to the housing commission.
Sorry, I'm just looking for the line. So I
Yeah,
can take
it's
notes.
like, it's not numbered, so it's 2, 3, 4, fourth one down.
Oh, thank you, yeah. Does that feel appropriate to you, Charlie?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Bryn, is there something specific that you want housing to weigh in on, or do you just feel like having our perspective or the perspective of the commission would be?
I think that being proactive and bringing that plan to the housing commission, assuming that the residents are the ones that are most impacted by parking reductions
Yeah.
and the status of our roads and streets and the safety of them for use for bicycles and pedestrians, that it feels appropriate to me that we proactively ask for their input. So, I would say, in the sense of what are their concerns, what's missing, would be, for me, something that I would want to hear back from them.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy to bring that to the chair and then our liaison.
Because I don't know that we will get that impact, that input without proactively bringing it to the group.
I support that.
I wonder if the possible renovation of the existing fire station, if self-healthy connected people should be engaged in that conversation. Under the guise of their safe portion of their commission work.
It would fall under Safe, Healthy, Connected, but I don't know if it's like more operational, if that should be an invite for consultation.
Consider invite for consultation, depending. I'd like ask staff to consider it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, it would be, I support having at least one other commission look at it, aside from the finance commission. And I'm curious why the parks is not proposed to be shared with municipal infrastructure. Second to last.
No one suggested it during the last meeting.
I think parks are part of the section of the master plan, the infrastructure. You recall?
They kind of straddle that and Safe, Healthy, Connected, so
Yeah.
I agree, I think having both engaged is good.
Okay.
I mean, same with senior center. Not gonna lie. If that's, you know, looking at brick and mortar.
Exciting joint meeting.
I mean, they might
Look
not
at
be
all
as
the-
excited as I am about infrastructure, but I'm pretty excited about infrastructure.
Are there any other suggested additions or changes?
No.
Okay. I can add, I just took notes by hand like a fool. I will update this document and send it out. I should be able to do this tomorrow so that we can start engaging with chairs.
I also want to just say thank you for putting this together.
Yeah. Super helpful.
All right, and then the final piece is the community engagement notes. This, I just want to make clear, so these are some notes from our discussion as well as my conversation with Elaine, but I think this is something that is always evolving and that I wouldn't want us to feel like whatever we're suggesting tonight is all we're gonna do. But if there's anything else that you suggest gets documented right now based on what we know, happy to update this as well. And I think maybe it goes without saying on here, as we're doing community outreach events, we can be sharing updates on any of these
Yep.
priorities.
Well, it looks like a great document. I don't have anything to add or adjust.
There are some operational things on here. And they're called out. So I just want to make sure, like,
We're clear about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Elaine suggested those and wanted to show where there is some like specific outreach planned by staff.
okay.
So that we know that we don't have to go out and tell everyone about the new public building registry updates.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't know how many community members really care about the skills matrix.
I bet we could find one.
I would be one, but,
See?
but I'm on the council, so. Fair enough, fair enough. I don't have anything else to add at the moment.
Yeah, there's nothing that flagged for me to add. But it's good to know that it's something of a working document.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we have this Google Doc with the community engagement. This is where we can like put on there, here's the topics we're trying to engage people on and sort of to keep track of things there.
I like having this as a reference document. And then other things that are just not, that are high public interest but not necessarily included on here are the capital improvement projects. And other things like that that are like, what's happening with the bridge? It's like, what's happening with the hotel?
So I actually, perhaps this is still within the scope of community engagement discussion. So on the Google sheet that we use to track like the groups, I have, I added a topics list there.
Cool, great.
Following the retreat discussion, and so all the capital projects are on here, and like just cause eviction and some other things that don't show up on here. But this is, you know, we can continue to add items here as we see what it is people want to hear about.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other? Sounds like there's no other sort of big things that we want to call out right now. Any questions from members of the public? Okay. We don't necessarily have to like approve these, but I'll take a motion just for the whole item. Anyone would like to make a motion to approve our strategies and priorities and engagement notes with the changes, suggested changes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Very excited to have this to move forward with. All right, we are on to item G, our Pride Month resolution. So we want to recognize June as Pride Month here in Winooski again. Thank you, councilors, for bringing forward a resolution last year. We have brought forward this resolution again with a small adjustment to recognize that some segments of society look to legislate and speak harmfully against the LGBTQIA+ community. And so the need for education and awareness remains vital. Another reason why we are adopting this resolution tonight. Are there any questions, concerns, text amendments? Okay.
Happy that we're doing it again.
Yeah.
Who would like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Aurora, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And we recognize June as Pride Month in Winooski, and we'll share that out.
Awesome.
Happy Pride.
All right. This brings us to the end of our regular agenda. An executive session has been warned pursuant to 1 VSA Section 313, which exempts from the public inspections. This discussion is regarding a contract. I'm looking for a motion to find that we should hold this discussion in executive session to not put the city at risk as we discuss contract terms.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now I'm looking for a motion to enter into executive session, inviting City Manager Elaine Wong.
So moved.
Anyone else? Sorry.
Angela and Ted, although Ted's not here yet because he really whipped through this agenda.
Yeah, okay. And the City Assessor Ted Nelson and Angela Aldiere. Motion by Charlie?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Aurora. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to move into executive session. We will only discuss this topic. No other business will be discussed. We will not be taking any actions this evening, and so at the end of executive session, we will return solely to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.